Hey, everybody, this is Pastor Mike Wheeler with Christ Agape Collective, and I have a treat for you today. I invited a good friend of mine, Chad Bourquin, to be on a video with me, and I'd like him to share some of his story and his insights with you, and I think you'll really get a lot out of it. How you doing, Chad?
Good, Mike. Thanks for having me
Good.
on.
Well, Chad and I have been friends for probably going on 20 years now. It's been a
Long
long
time.
time.
Yeah.
And what made me think of Chad for this call for you is I know you're going to get a lot out of what he has to say. Chad and I started meeting about 5 years ago. Uh,
Yeah,
we would
probably.
we would get
Hmm.
together on a weekly basis or as often as we could. And at the time, I was going through a pretty difficult time. I was out of work and looking for new opportunities. And we initially got together to kind of network and see if he knew of any jobs. And lo and behold, one thing led to another, and we began reading a few books together and just began to kind of challenge and encourage one another with new ideas and new ways of thinking. And I didn't prep you with this one, but I got to thinking in the last 5 years, now I've known you for 20 years, but in the
Hmm.
last 5 years, I've seen your band go through the roof, experience tremendous success. I've seen you develop the Big Time series where you're encouraging and inspiring people to take their lives to a new level. You're speaking to corporate events, you're speaking in schools, you've got a music production company. I mean, your life has gone through the roof, I would say, from my vantage point in the last 5 years. And so, my first question to you is why are you so blessed?
Yeah. Wow, that's a big question, Mike. You gonna just start easy, a little easier on me?
Well,
um,
if you don't have an answer for that one right yet, we can kind of move on to some simple.
well, I do have an answer
Okay.
answered for you. It is compound consistency of doing the things that it takes to allow blessings to come into my life. And what I mean by that is, you know, I grew up in the church. I've been going to church forever. I remember going to church. I remember going to all kinds of things and seeing these people just have everything go right in their life. And I'm like, I just used to get so frustrated. It's like, okay, we believe in the same God. what what's going on with them
Yeah.
that's not going on with me? And it took, man, it just took me learning that I was really missing some stuff. Just because I believed the same things they believe, it didn't mean I was doing the same things they were doing. And I didn't believe exactly the same things they believed because I didn't understand what it meant to just like have a big belief and match that with an expectation. Because it's one thing to just believe and hope and dream, but that's all magical and it doesn't really do anything until you start having an expectation and then your actions start lining up with your expectations. And so that's what changed for me. And it took a while because I had years of scar tissue and training and upbringing and conditioning of some things that were not lining up with that. What I started to notice here's the interesting thing. I started noticing because we started getting booked all these dates with our country band for these guys that were just seemed like they had everything going for them, and some of them were Christians and some of them weren't. And I'm like, all right, so what's going on here? There's like no discrepancy in blessings between from a visual perspective from between these two groups. And I just started paying real close attention to that. And about that time, we started having a coach, and he started running us through the book. You and I have spent a lot of time on working with the law,
Mhm.
As a Man Thinketh is another one. I mean, we can go on and on about the books we've read over and over again. And so these things started adding up, and I started realizing it's like, okay, maybe, you know, this is not a discussion of what happens later. This is a discussion of what allows to, you know, these blessings to come in. And these guys, no matter what they believe, were following the same principles. And that's what I had to learn. I had to learn what those principles were. And it, you know, it came down to how you treat people, how you believe in, you know, what you believe, how you act, how you talk. And you can't talk right till you think right. So, so yeah, I mean, that's the condensed version of that.
Yeah,
This is a 5-hour discussion or more better.
right.
So yeah.
In this last 5 years, what was one stellar upper limit problem that you've discovered that was really limiting how much success you were achieving?
See, I don't think I can put it into one because we always hit upper limit problems.
Mm.
Um, okay. If there's one upper limit problem was learning that there's upper limits.
Yeah.
That's the one there. And once you figure out that we all hit these upper limits and those things that where, and just, I'm assuming if a lot of people listening may not even know what that means, but it's from the book, The Big Leap. But
Mhm.
an upper limit is where, you get to a certain point in life and then you have, if you go past that point, you have passed a spot where you believe you should be at. You don't feel like you deserve to be above that spot. And so what we do is we start self-sabotaging ourselves. And we like if we hit that spot financially and start to surpass that, we may self-sabotage ourselves financially, but we might do it in other areas. We might do it in our relationship. We might have a big sale come in for something, and then we go home and start a fight with our wife. We're good, but if we don't understand that that's there, that upper limit's there, then we are going to do that. We're going to self-sabotage, and we're going to be right back where we're in our comfort zone, which is below, right around that spot where we think this is where I feel comfortable being.
Yeah, and we've discovered a lot of upper limit problems in our lives over the last 5 years, and we're still struggling with some of them, aren't we?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. You never quit having them. But the key to learning from this process is realize you never quit having them, and the longer you do this, the better you start recognizing them quicker. You can actually get past them quicker with less pain. How many times in life have we felt like it took, we first had a little slap in the face, that didn't get our attention. So then we got a little punch, then we got the legs taken out from us. Then a car ran over us, and finally maybe that, or maybe the plane crashing was what finally got our attention. Eventually, eventually we get to the point where just the little nudge or slap on the face gets our attention, then
we recognize it.
We recognize it, yeah, for sure.
Well, you and I played on the same worship team many years ago in a church that we both attended together, which I have some awesome memories of that.
Me too.
And we both have been in prison together. Should we tell them that story?
Yeah, for sure. we have to now.
Well, we've done music ministry in prison. Relax, take it easy.
Yeah.
So we alluded to the fact that you're in a country band, and it's a very good band, by the way. It's a secular band. I think some of the people watching this would be interested. I'd be interested to hear more. Was there ever a time that you felt guilty playing in a secular band and maybe playing in bars? Was there any time that you ever felt convicted or guilty about that? And if so, what happened in your faith that really gave you peace about pursuing that?
Yeah, for sure. That happened right after I recommitted my life. I'd been on the road for years with the rock band, and right after I did that, I was like, all of a sudden I just didn't feel like I could do the bar thing anymore. I don't now feel like I can do that anymore, but that's more about sleep than anything. So, so,
Yeah.
um, uh, so what I had to do is I had to go through this process, because then I ended up in a Christian rock band that figured out we didn't fit in youth groups, or we were just like too outside the realm for that too. And we ended up, I remember the first time we thought, well, we don't seem to fit here either. Let's go do a bar gig and see what happens there. And that was the first. It was weird, man. I remember going to that gig. It was the Bottleneck in Lawrence, and I remember sitting there beforehand thinking, I haven't been in a bar for years, and I'm about to play in one's like, am I going to hell? You know. But I got done playing that gig and went home. I was like, well, that was no big deal. You
You're
know,
still alive.
I'm still alive. I feel like I'm in good shape here.
Yeah.
But eventually it opened. Like it helped me realize it just, for me, there's a lot of parts of my life that, at least in the past, I think I'm better now, where I felt like I had to kind of hit both ends of the spectrum before I could find the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what happened with that. You know, I went all the way from the bars to zero, nothing, you know, and then I found out, okay, here's that middle spot. I'm good here. You know, I can, you know, so I guess that answers your question.
So in the last 5 years, then, and you can take it back a little farther during this process, um, what in your understanding about God's love for you as a person has changed, or what revelation have you had as far as understanding that's really uh, changed the way you think about that?
Yeah. So I used to really struggle with this thought that God was this being up here that was ready to judge everything I was doing. Which we've heard a lot of people say that, you know, that's not something new. I got past that first, but then I started realizing how much, you know, we were created in the image of God, and we are one with God. And that is, I think that was the biggest revelation. And that, you know, this is a long conversation, but that is the biggest revelation for me, to really understand what that meant, being one, and that it's not, God is not this thing out there somewhere. And that, you know, like when it comes to, okay, here's I think a good way to explain this. A lot of people will say, I apologize if this gets you in trouble, but a lot of people will say, say, I need to pray about this. Okay. I don't ever say that anymore. Okay. And here's why I don't say that. I don't say that because if I have a desire to do something, I know I've worked hard enough through all these things to know that the desire came from God, because God is in me. That's where the desire came. Okay. Mm. And it's a pure desire. And so if the desire is there, then I have the ability to do that if I want to. So then what it comes down more to is just making sure that I'm making those decisions on the right pretense, you know? And if the passion is pure, okay, like guitar, I mean, I get so much joy out of playing guitar. All right. But I've also had to work really, really hard to be a good enough guitar player to work as a guitar player. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really hard to narrow this down this tight, but for example, let's talk about American Idol. That show success is based on all the people that go on that show that think they have this desire and this pure, and they were born to sing, and they get up there and they stink. Mm-hmm. You know, that's where that show makes its money in the beginning stages, because people love to watch people fall on their face. And then when they're told they stink, they're like, oh, I mean, what? They can't even believe that it's true, because they feel like it's, but the problem was they got this desire and it stopped there. They never went to the next level and said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this gift so excellent that it's my gift back to God. And I think that might be the best way to say that is our desires and our dreams are God's gift to us. Our perfecting them and doing them with excellence is our gift back to God. And that's how we work together.
Yeah, that's good.
Took me a bit to get there, but got there eventually.
that would bear repeating if you remember what you said.
Nope. I'm glad you're recording it.
Oh, okay. So you've touched on some interesting thought processes about how God is in you, giving you the desires. That in itself, I find, takes a high level of faith and trust, because you're trusting that that's God in you, giving you that desire. And I wonder how many times we get those and then don't act on them out of fear or guilt or one of those upper limit problems that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you the key to that for me, and maybe anybody, is because I can fall into that negative side of that just like anybody. But it's the disciplines that I do every day that keep me in that spot of that belief.
That's where I want to go next. I'm glad you mentioned that. Great segue. So all of this being said, how do you start each day? Do you do something religiously every day? I mean, what does your unorthodox morning look like to start your day?
Yeah, so I have learned the power of the alpha state. And that is that point right when you wake up but haven't completely woken up. And most of us have a tendency, we've conditioned ourselves to the minute we wake up, we grab the cell phone and check something, email, Facebook, whatever. And we have just ruined any potential from that alpha state right there, because it instantly engages our mind to start thinking about other things that are not probably the best things to be thinking about. So what I do is the very first thing I wake up is I grab my phone and put my headphones in and hit some music that's just like a breathing technique. It's in 3, out 5, and it lasts for 15 minutes. And I lay my head back down. Well, okay, first I take a nutrition pack energy thing, because if I don't, that next step is going to put me back to sleep. So it's what works for me. But
I use coffee, but I'm a simpler guy.
Either's fine, but I could down the pills within like 10 seconds. So I'm not messing with that alpha state by doing that. So then I'll lay my head back down and I'll just lay there and I'll just breathe and just relax. And that's when I feel like God really has a platform to talk to me, that I'm going to hear him the most.
Yeah.
Because usually, like what I'm going to get 1 or 2 ideas during that time that are probably something I should do that day. Like today, I've got a couple specific songs that I need to write for some situations. And this morning, at that time is when I've kind of been a loss of where to start on it. And this morning I got the beginning stages of where to start on that, but sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's like somebody will pop into my mind, and I mean, if somebody pops in my mind, I need to talk to them that day.
Yeah.
And it's usually almost always a situation where it's like, oh man, I was thinking of you, or like, oh, I'm glad you called. I need to talk to you about this. I mean, stuff like that, So
well, it's fascinating that you use the term alpha wave in music, because there's plenty of scripture that back up exactly what you're saying. I will seek you early in the morning, and
I'm the alpha, I'm the omega.
Well, there's just plenty of scriptures that talk about praying early in the morning, and I've personally experienced that myself. It's like the best part of the day is early, when things are quiet and you can actually listen. And it sounds like what you're describing to me is a form of meditation.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing about what you're talking about with scripture is, and I think a lot of people struggle with this. I know I did. I I used to think of it as a rule book, and I hated following rules.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I resisted it. So the idea of reading something and telling me to do that, I'm like, I don't want to do that. You know,
Yeah.
as opposed to it just being, no, this is not a rule book. This is like, these are steps to help you in your life have a better life, period, in the
Right.
story. You
Right.
know, and working with the law is just basically somebody wrote a lot of information in a different way of what's in the Bible already
Right.
that really helped me understand a lot of that.
Right. Absolutely. So, do you feel like in your situation right now with your band and the music and coaching and all the things that God has opened up for you, uh, do you feel like God is using that? Do you look at it as a ministry, or what's your vantage point there?
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, there's I've got so many stories. You know, the best compliment we get as a band, and we've gotten it many times, is when people will come up and say, you know, when I got here tonight, I went, you know, I was in a bad spot, but I feel better now because of being here. You know, that's not you guys are rock or you guys are great musicians or your songs are killer. It, you know, whatever. I mean, I would appreciate that, but I mean, it's the it's the it's the I feel better when I leave than when I got here compliment that
Hmm.
really resonates with us.
Amen. Amen. That's good. So, what's been the biggest change? And we might have talked about this, but if we were to just kind of wrap it up, take you 10 years ago and take you right now today, what's been the biggest change in your thinking? What's been the biggest change in you personally that you've seen between the 10-year time span?
Well, just kind of put it in a short summary, I'm way happier. You know, I've I've chosen to do things, disciplines and things that have led to me doing what I want to do and love to do every day with people I love to work with every day. And I'm just way happier. I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying this time of quarantine because I mean everything's got a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this quarantine to me, like my main revenue is playing in big time grain company and booking other bands, all live entertainment, all on the back burner right
All
now.
gone.
Yeah. So, but we've got these other projects that I've been hugely passionate about that haven't started generating revenue yet. But now I have time to work on them, you know, and same with my brother. We're in the same spot on this. We're working on these things together. And so I'm so grateful that these have been pushed to the front burner for us
Mhm.
because they are big passions of ours too. You know, it's all connected to music.
You mentioned passion. Do you feel like the journey you've been on in the last 5 years would translate to somebody that's watching that says, "Well, that's great, but I don't play guitar. I can't sing. I'm not a musician." I mean, is what you're saying transferable to somebody? Can they find their passion, and or is it just limited to people that have talent?
Well, everybody's got talent and everybody's creative. And so it's a huge mistake to think that creativeness comes only with the arts because it doesn't. Thank God my accountant is creative.
Hmm.
You know what I'm
Amen for
saying?
that. Yeah.
And
Just
I
this
could,
side of illegal creative.
right. I mean, we can go down the list of that, you know? And so to view yourself as not creative is saying, well, if I am one with the creator and I am made in the image of the creator, then how can I say I'm not creative? That didn't even compute,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know?
that's
And I had
good.
to, I mean, it took me not a bit, quite a while to understand that. I've been through 3 backup plans before I got back to this point that were 15 years long, about 5 years apiece. So if you're sitting there thinking, I can't I can't, I'm stuck here. Man, no, you're not. This is a decision. This is what I think this is going to do to a lot of people. It is shaking things up in many, many ways. I'm talking about the quarantine and everything going on. It is forcing, it's like, gosh, I just so amazed at how God can orchestrate and take something like this in so many people's lives with so many different dynamics going on and so many different facets. But yet I'm hearing this across the board for people that are open to this message, that this can be the change, the force. This is the jet falling out of the sky for a lot of people.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
But it's what needed to happen for a lot of people.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I think what I'm hearing you say is that you finally came to peace with who God created you to be, and you quit trying to run away from it and be something that you thought you should be.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, man, I've got a lot more questions, but I want to keep these succinct. I don't want to choke people with all this good information, but
well,
I
part
think
two.
we need to do some more of these. So,
All right.
and I'll keep writing the questions down because I think this is awesome. But while we wrap up here, I wanted to give you a chance. People are going to want to find out more about you.
Mm-hmm.
How can they find out more about Chad Bourquin and about what you do?
I mean, the fastest way to get to everything I do is if you're on LinkedIn, just find me on LinkedIn. It's Chad Bourquin, but which is yeah.
Bourqui. Oh, it's on the screen right there.
Oh, there we go. But the band name is Big Time Grain Company. Dream Big series is the keynote concerts we do. That's that'll lead you to everything else. There's a
Okay.
podcast and all kinds of stuff.
And it's got your website and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Chad, thank you, man. This is a lot to chew on, and hopefully we can do it again because I'd like to dive more in. We started out with the upper limit problem, and I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't expecting to go there, but I really think there's a lot to unpack there that we probably should.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me today. And everybody, I'm praying for you, and make the most of this lockdown. And Pastor Don and I are lifting you up in prayer. And it's been great having you. And we'll look forward to my next conversation with Chad. Thank you, Chad.
Yep. Thanks, Mike.